Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and welcome to the Friday Conversation, the last one of 2022. So hashtag goodbye 2022. Lots of changes coming next year that maybe we'll talk about later, but some changes to the Friday Conversation. A little bit, not major, but so we'll kick off with some introductions. João, you want to give us an introduction? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm João F. Silva. I'm the author of the upcoming trilogy of The Smokesmiths that starts with the upcoming book Seeds of War, which will come out at some point in early 2023.
Congrats.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome. Good stuff. So I'm on the list. I hope I'm on the list for ARCs for that one.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
I've taken the liberty of introducing your name in there.
Oh, awesome. Good to hear. I'm not going to let you forget about me. So,
Yeah.
And Shauna, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, my name is Shauna Lawless, and I'm the author of The Children of Gods and Fighting Men, which is a historical fantasy set in 10th century Ireland. And my second book is coming out next year, which is in the same trilogy. So, I'm a writer and also like to read lots of fantasy and sci-fi books.
Yeah, and we just want to mention, well, we're on the topic that we are we'll be buddy reading The Children of Gods and Fighting Men and discussing it with Shauna. I have to look at the calendar, make sure I have the right day, but it's February 18th. So anyone who's interested in joining us, we're all very excited for that. And of course, Mr. P.L. Stuart, will you give us an introduction?
Oh, if I'm off, I'm there. I was just saying before the broadcast that Shauna's book was high on my TBR. And of course, Joe, I have to get your book as well. Congratulations on the release. I gotta pick that up. And
not out yet, but it will be soon.
Yeah, no, I'm excited, and obviously great to be on with Chris. I'm a big fan of Chris's. So yeah, I'm P.L. Stewart. I carry Steve's luggage around on page chewing, and kind of like his boy Friday, and yeah. So that's me. I'm the author of the John Kingdom Saga, and as you know, I do page chewing with Steve and the wonderful and talented Taylor, and I'm a blogger before we go blog, and I'm a writer, and yeah, I just kind of like a fake booktuber. I don't have my own channel. I just kind of poach off of Steve's and Taylor's, and but yeah, so that's me, and I'm really happy to be here, excited to be here, honored to be here on the last Friday conversation of 2022. So
awesome. Of course, Chris, it wouldn't be a Friday without saying hello to you.
Wouldn't be a Friday without my running total of how many days it's been since I've last done a video, which is not 59, I think. So occasionally, booktuber, I'll have to do a year-end lists. I keep on making lists and then not recording anything. I think we all do that. But yeah, great to be on with everybody again for the first time. PL and then Shauna and João again. It's awesome. Great to be here, especially to celebrate the end of the year, because it'll be it's been like my New Year's Eve party in some ways, even though it's not till tomorrow. Yeah.
Wow.
And our friend Layla's here. Congratulations,
Hey, Layla.
Thank you so much.
I know it's last minute, Layla, but if you want to join us on stream, just let us know. There's room for you. So if you want to hop on and chat with us. And Lana, of course, you too. Hey, everyone.
Lana. Oh, we love Lana. We love Lana.
JBJ Blaze. I'll just leave my greetings here.
JBJ, what's up?
I'm so excited for this convo. Amazing.
You should be here, Lana. You should be talking with us, man.
Jump on.
Yeah, jump on.
Yeah. So I guess we can talk about it. So PL, I guess we can announce it. I guess it's fitting to announce it on a Friday conversation, but we'll have a little bit of a change. I'll try and explain this in a way that makes sense. So starting next in 2 weeks, well, it'll be the Friday conversation. It'll still be the same format, still be pretty much the same, but the title will change to Page Chewing Friday Conversations, and the only difference is that PL and or Taylor will be here as often as they can. So we kind of bringing it under the same umbrella and expanding it and kind of making that like a flagship. So we're excited for that. So nothing major. It'll still be the same thing. Just window dressing, really. And of course, we'll be visiting more with PL and Taylor. So excited for that.
And I'll be watching every week.
Yeah, sorry, you got to put up with me more than usual. I apologize, but
cut it out.
Oh man.
Cut it out. And Shauna, we were talking before about, we didn't scare you away, so thanks for coming back.
No, then I love kind of conversations like this, just about books and kind of the fantasy and scene in general, and there's no pressure, and it's just everyone can chip in with what they're thinking or what's interesting. So no, I love it.
Yeah. And João, thanks again for coming back too.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's always a pleasure to be here. Yeah, I mean, it's always been lovely to interact with you guys, and yeah, it's just great to be here.
Yes. So we talked a little bit about the end of 2022. What do you all have planned for the holiday, for New Year's? Anything special? Anything crazy?
I was out today. My kids are away with their grandmother today for the day. So myself and wife actually went out downtown. And we went out for something to eat at like 4 o'clock. Got to 5 o'clock to pay the bill, like a whole hour in a restaurant. And they said, "What are you doing now?" It says, "Going home." In fact, I'll probably not leave the house for 3 days now that I've actually been outside. I'll reward myself by de-stressing and taking that away. And the girl behind the counter just looked and went, "Oh, no." And I went, "No, it sounds absolutely fabulous to me."
Yeah, New Year's Eve's it's a bit mad. And I take it you're out in Belfast, were you?
I was indeed, yes, I was. So
Yeah,
I had
so
a look at
Belfast
Waterstone's favorite book as well.
Oh, did you? Did you find out?
I didn't. There didn't seem to be any copies because it was like I was looking, but maybe they had them in a separate table by themselves because I actually didn't go to like local author section, so I might.
There was. No, it was in the fantasy section because I work close to Waterstones, so I was like stalking my own book and taking photographs. So there was a table of my book on the 21st of December. There was about 12 copies. So if they're gone, that means that they've been bought, which is fantastic.
They are gone, yeah, for sure.
That must be the best feeling in the world, like to just enter a bookshop and have your book there, just like a whole table dedicated for you. Like that, how great does that feel?
It's really surreal, even still, because I grew up and reading was my thing, and at Christmas, from all my relatives, like all aunties and uncles, I just asked for book tokens. And my big thing was to go to Waterstones on Boxing Day or the day after, and I would be there for hours picking all the books that I would want with my book tokens. So for me, it's a big deal, because that was, such a huge experience for me, going book shopping and like really enjoying picking books out, and so it's really wonderful. And I've been writing for such a long time, and I have had books rejected and all that experience as well. So it's really lovely, and it's weird to kind of see my book in a bookstore. It doesn't quite seem real sometimes, but it is. It's fantastic, and Head of Zeus did such a fantastic job with the covers and getting it out to all the bookstores, and it's been really, really good.
I was looking for yours the other day, Shauna, in Canada. We have one major bookstore here. It's Chapters Indigo, and it wasn't there yet. It was not in my location. It was in other locations, but you can order it in. So, but I want that experience of going in to like grab it off the shelves myself. And I totally know what you mean. And your book is extremely popular these days. A lot of bloggers are talking about it. A lot of reviewers are talking about it. So very high on my TBR. I'm not traditionally published like yourself. I'm self-published, but I was able to get my book on consignment into several of the chapter stores, which for self-published authors, is pretty good in, just regionally. But yeah, the feeling of, I totally agree with Sean. It's surreal to walk into a bookstore and see my book there. It doesn't. And then when I did my first book signing at Chapters, I did it at a couple of different locations. It just, I just, it's like an out of body experience. Like I can't believe I'm there, like talk to people about a book that I wrote. And it's like, and they're like, "Oh, are you the author?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's me. I'm on the back." So
I've got the hat.
yeah, I didn't wear the hat, but
no.
Yeah,
So
that sounds lovely.
when you guys find your book in bookstores, do you sign them? Do you just kind of walk around and sign them? Is that something that you all do?
Shauna, what's your experience?
Well, I'm normally too shy to do that, but I was, and I met. I went actually to meet an author friend of mine who's from America. She's a romance writer called Abby Jimenez. Don't know if she writes romance books, and they're very, very popular. And we went into a bookstore, and she like told me off because I didn't do it. She was like, you're crazy. You go and introduce yourself and sign your books. So I plucked up the courage and did it in 2 books for them. But I don't know. I need that sort of stuff. I am normally very embarrassed about speaking to people I don't know and putting myself forward. Yeah, but no, I should do it because I'm sure. Like, I love it when I walk into a bookstore and I pick up a book and there's like a sneaky signature inside. So we should.
Yeah, you really should. That's I just stealth bomb. I kind of when I'm not doing a book signing, I come with my hoodie over my head. I know who I am, and then I'll just sneak over and kind of like do a quick signature and just pop back on the shelf when no one's looking. I'll be like, But at the book signing was really neat because speaking of Shauna saying fellow author, so one of my book signings, I've had people like Miriam Thorpe. She's a brilliant writer. Miriam L. Thorpe. She writes like historical fantasy. She's she drove all the way, like she lives about 2 hours away from where I was signing, and she came all the way down, surprised me, and it was great. And we got to hang out and take some pictures. And yeah, she's a brilliant writer, fantastic person. But just the whole experience of being an author and being in a bookstore with your books is I love bookstores. And although I know typically now a lot of people are making their purchases online, there's just still something. I love physical books, and I crave them. And there's just something about walk to a bookstore and not just my book, but picking up those books, so that tangible feeling of the pages and flipping and seeing the covers. And that's probably why my credit card bill is so because I end up impulse buying these books. But it's just wonderful. I know physical bookstores perhaps are becoming like dinosaurs. They're slowly going extinct, but while they're around, I love going into them and just browsing. So
yeah, I have to say, like I mostly buy signed hardcovers, but only after I've read the ebook and I've loved it. So I read the ebook first, and then if I really like the book, I buy it in a physical format because I want to have a physical, a proof that I read it and that I own it and that it's signed, hopefully. Or if it's not signed, then I'll usually get the author to sign it. Yeah.
Chris, if you bought a book off the shelf and it was you looked in the cover and it was signed, would you believe it was would you think it was the author, or was somebody just messing with you?
Not a chance. I would think somebody's actually just playing it. Somebody has left this book and thought this will be a really nice practical joke to sign this. Especially, it would have to have some sort of personalized message or something. Thanks for reading the book, even something like that. And then the signing to kind of make you think, actually, okay, somebody's actually taking the time to do this, rather than it being kind of somebody scribbled on my book.
I know that like my signed copies probably sell the most out of all the different revenue streams. No, sorry, second behind ebooks. Ebooks sell the most, but signed copies would be the next for me. That seemed to just that personal touch. I think that people want, and a lot of my fellow authors have found the same. That if they can get a signed copy into someone's hands, it's a special. It's really unique. So, I love having signed copies, and especially if authors give me a book or we trade books, and you get that package comes in, and there's a personal message in the book to you. Like that's fantastic. So.
Fiction escapist.
Hey, Chris.
Thanks for coming by.
Chris.
Our friend Maggie the Strays here. Hello from Germany. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Lana, I'm listening while I pack all my books to move. I procrastinated too much yesterday. Moving stuff. P.L, it's always a pleasure to see your face.
I love you, Lana. Miss you.
Our friend Layla, thank you for the invitation. I'm listening as I'm updating something for a student who is finishing work over winter break. If I finish, I'll hop on. Well, here's hoping. The door's open for you. Mike's book reviews. I'm just here for Shauna's dreamy accent.
She does have an awesome accent.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I always think people
Oh,
can't
sorry.
understand me though, so I always maybe over pronouncing my words. But Chris, you can understand me.
Oh,
So
100%.
we're fine.
Nobody can understand me though. I mean, I talk even faster than than that. So
Speaking of Lana, everyone, Shauna has a dreamy accent. Also, everyone, what is Chris saying? Just kidding. I love both your accents. Hey, Shad, how's it going?
Shad.
How's it
What's
going
up?
tonight?
How's it going, Chad? Okay.
Pretty good.
Aaron.
Friend Aaron,
Hey.
hope you're doing
Yeah.
well. Thanks for coming by, Aaron. Do it, Shauna. It's the coolest thing to pick up a book that's been low key signed.
Yeah.
I know I am going to start doing that because I myself have picked up several books and then noticed afterwards that the author had signed it. The Luke Skull book, and he had signed it, and who else? An Adrian Selby book. So it's
wow.
always good. Like I always am excited myself, so I should start doing that.
Adrian Selby, that Steve's got me. It's probably one of the next books in the next month that I'll be getting to, the Winter Road one. That's high on my TBR. But what? Sorry, Shauna, you said.
Yeah, because I want to read those books as well. I have, I think, 2 or 3 of them. But are they a series or are they standalone? Or are they standalone but somehow connected?
So this is the thing.
Standalone, not in a similar shared world, or
so they're standalones. So you can read them as standalones, but after reading 2 of them, I do recommend reading them in order because there's not a lot that you'll miss, but there's little details that I feel like because I read The Winter Road and in Brother Red, there was some little details, like, not major. You probably wouldn't even notice if you didn't know what they were referring to, but it's kind of like, oh, that's they're talking about this person or they're talking about this event. So it was kind of neat to have those little callbacks. So
yeah, awesome. Yeah, I have to give a shout out.
I like reading. If there's any little things.
I was going to say, I'm not sure what you guys are reading. I'm hoping to hear what everyone's reading, but I have to give a shout out. The book I'm reading right now, Steve, you're going to want this one, buddy. It is exactly up your alley. The Masters by Ricardo Pinto. This is, wow. It is dark as all get out. The prose is impeccable. It's not a big read. I think it's only, about 300 pages. I'm taking my time. Like normally I would have burned through this already, but it's so good. I'm just savoring. Like, wow, like great book, really dark. A book that was published a long time ago, but probably didn't get the recognition it deserved. I think the author re-released it in a different editions, but this is phenomenal. Blaze from Under the Radar Books, big fan, and he was recommended this by Janie Wirtz. So, if Janie Wirtz recommends a book, it's good because she's a phenomenal author. So, The Masters by Ricardo Pinto. It's a 7-book series. This is the first one. So, and I'm all in. So, Steve, this one's for you, baby. You're gonna love this.
I actually met Ricardo a few months ago. I actually have it on my TBR, but I haven't had the chance to read it yet.
Beautiful covers.
Really good. Really good.
Is the series finished?
Yes, it's finished as far as I know. So
it looks to be.
Okay.
Yeah, Jenny had put a thread up in the forum of books that she's read recently that nobody's ever heard of, but you need to add to your TBR. I was like, dear God, Jenny, it's as if I need. As I pointed out, I said to you, I was like, the last thing I need is a really fabulous author writing blurbs for other books that I need to read. Like, because you read every single one and go, these all sound fantastic.
Yeah. That's the problem. Too many books, too little time.
Oh yeah.
It's funny. I was saying that to my wife actually when we were walking around earlier. I says, like, the book world's so weird, right? Because the one thing you will never lack for is books to read, right? There's advanced reader copies going around. There's people trying to promote their own book or trying to get some exposure for the book. So there's just books everywhere. Like, even you could have got advanced reader copies of Lost Metal, things that are really like phenomenally popular. but all we do is spend time buying more books. You know, it's not like that's enough to satiate or, you know, or kind of say, oh, I've got all this stuff. It's just when you're in the world and you're in the conversation and you're reading many good books, you just want more good books. You just want to kind of experience more of those stories. And it's kind of one of those things that I think in the old kind of world, I think some of us are of a certain age, we had access to so little content and stuff that one thing would have done you for a long time. And now we're in a world where you can have as much content as you want, but it's like just when you're in the atmosphere and in the world, you just keep on buying more stuff, consuming more stuff. Like we were talking about the numbers of books that were read beforehand. Like those numbers are all insane. My numbers insane. Your numbers, it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I remember going to the bookstore in Portugal and looking for fantasy books, and there's just Tolkien, maybe Stephen Erickson, and there's Harry Potter, and that's basically it. And now I went when I was over there for Christmas, and it's just so much stuff, and even authors that are not even really that popular in the in the English speaking language. So that's actually, I think it's growing quite a lot in pretty much all ways, like not just in the format, but also in terms of the distribution, I would say.
Mm-hmm. I think the genre itself, like fantasies, had such an explosion of like it's not like a niche genre anymore. It's a mainstream genre, because I was the same growing up, went fantasy, and I felt completely alone because nobody else read it, and the bookstores had Tolkien and maybe, I don't know, like one or two other authors, and that was it. You kind of took what you were given, which is why whenever I got to go to Waterstones at Christmas, because it was such a big bookstore, it was more selectively exciting as opposed to like the little store in the town that we lived in. But yeah, I just think fantasy has exploded, and I think we're all after trying to find that book or that series that just completely engrosses and captivates and just sucks you in. And I read so much, and a lot of what I read is like 4-star reads. They're really good and lots to admire and fantastic, but it's just that search for that kind of 5-star plus read that kind of drives me. I'm always looking for something that really, I just can't put down. And to be honest, this year and last year, I've found lots of those books. I think the quality, as well as the quantity, is going up all the time. There's just there's so much to read, and there's good books to read. It's both.
Yeah, I think my problem is now I have too many, as Sean is saying, too many amazing 5-star books and too many amazing 5-star series, because it's one thing to pick what standalone is a 5-star, okay, but now we have all these series, and then and I think a lot of that, I think there's a few things that what Sean indicated, it's a really good point. I think Sean's point about fantasy becoming it's no longer a niche genre. TV and video games, I think those are the two big things that have changed that. And big TV series like the Game of Thrones, the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power, like those big series are really bringing people who would normally may perhaps not read the books. Okay, well, I'll read what the book is behind this TV show, right? Especially to see if it's the similarities, because obviously the TV shows by nature have to be somewhat different. And I think the other thing is self-published books, because there are so many incredible self-published books out there. I made 2 top 10 2022 lists this year, and not because books are books. It wasn't like an elitist thing like, self-published person tries, because I want to get more books on the top 10 list, so I kind of separate them out, so I get more books, more authors, name out there, right? So I think now it's like just the advance of self-published books and the quality. You can't tell. You walk into a chapters and you see self-published books, you can't tell the difference in traditional published books. The quality, the covers, the writing. There's so many fantastic ones out there. I think that's really been a game changer. So, and now half of my TBR is self-published books, and I'm a self-published author. So, I totally do what I can to advance the cause of self-published books. And There's so many amazing self-published authors out there. Like it just blows me away, and just the caliber again is just phenomenal. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And I think, because I think in fantasy has always been a genre that pushes boundaries. And, you know, if I like other genres too, I like thriller and fantasy. But in a sense, they are more formulaic. And readers expect it to be like that. You know, in a romance book, you want the happy ever after, and you want, you know, your protagonist to meet at a certain point, and you know that it's a comfort read. You want kind of what you, I suppose you want what you expect, but with fantasy, you want to read something new. You want new ideas. You want different characters. You don't actually want fantasy to be formulaic. So I think with self-published authors and books, they really get a chance to do things that are very different, and you can have stories than a traditional publisher would want. You can have themes that are different and kind of genre mixes that maybe a traditional publisher would be afraid to market. So I think within the fantasy genre, the self-publishing quality is just the same as trad. You know, there is no difference anymore. I don't think so anyway. I've read quite a lot of self-pub books, and you know, I can't tell. You know, it's like why have some of these been published and why have some others not? And for me, normally it's the length is one reason, and the other reason is just I don't know. The editor just at the traditional house wasn't feeling that book, but there is no reason. They are so good.
yeah, and a lot
so I'm
of
trying to think who I read this year. Self-pub, but Ryan Cahill.
Yeah.
I started reading his books, and they're brilliant. But there's loads. And Tiago Abdallah, I read his A Touch of Light, which is fantastic. Like those books could be traditionally published. There is no reason why they weren't, other than I think the authors have done such a good job with self-publishing that they didn't need to.
Yeah, I mean, I just put a review up of mentioning that, Shauna, of Ryan Cahill's The Fall, his novella. It was great. And you know, he's got an agent now, and the man, I said right in my review, the man sold like 40,000 copies in like a year. Like he said, he doesn't necessarily need to, you know, go the traditional publishing route. I mean, I believe he has an agent now, but I think that role is changing too a lot now. A lot of self-published authors are getting agents to, you know, more as advisors and guidance, almost like mini editors, and also to potentially get their books marketed into segments where they might not otherwise have them. But I think a lot of self-published authors are opting, you know, at making an educated, informed decision to stay self-published as opposed to being traditionally published. Not that they wouldn't want that, but some are just electing to do that for various reasons. And we talk about this all the time. You see a lot of traditionally published authors that are, you know, putting out some of their certain just select series or lines out in self-published form because they think perhaps their publisher wouldn't go for that, but they still want to get it out there. So they just self-publish it. They have the audience already. So, you know, and it's the industry is really changing and the lines are really blurring, and I don't know where it's all going. It might be like the music industry down the road. We talk about a lot, Steve and I and Taylor, on page shooting with various guests and bloggers and authors. And I think another big thing we talk about a lot too is booktubers, because booktubers now they'll have your book up, Shauna. They'll talk about that, say how brilliant it is, give a review, and then right after that they'll have Ryan Cahill's book, and who knows the difference, right? Unless the booktuber refers to it as specifically being self-published, it's a book, right? So this book is great and this book is great, and you know, people go out and buy it. So you know, I think that's another big revolution that's happened with booktubers promoting and advertising a variety of works, self-published and trad, that, you know, kind of it's like comparing apples to apples, because nobody knows. They just hold the book cover up there. It looks great. Booktuber has positive things to say about it, and people go buy it. So
yeah, no, that's definitely true.
And our friend Alicia's here. Hey Alicia, thanks for coming by. Jared, thanks for hanging out with us tonight.
Jared,
Brandy, I love Abby Jimenez. I picked up her newest book, Part of Your World. I would die if it happened to be signed.
Yeah.
Tori.
Shauna, your accent is awesome. I can understand both you and Chris.
Tori.
Oh,
Oh,
good.
sorry.
Hey, Tori. Tori's
Tori.
awesome. Check out her channel.
Yeah,
Amazing.
sure. Just
channel.
hit
Great
1,500 subs. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great stuff. Yeah, congrats on that, Tori.
Our friend Daniel, I just imagined myself in jail for trying to sign copies of my own book. I read it at random Barnes and Noble without telling anyone.
Do you know that's a pretty good idea? You've self-published a book. You can't find your book in the stores. You bring a couple of copies and just throw them on the shelf, and then people are like, "Oh, this isn't on the system or something," and then people have to go and investigate and order it in and get a price for it and stuff like that. It's pretty genius, actually.
It could be the idea for a thriller. As an author signing the book in a bookstore, you have to do without being found out.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Was it we had Steve Taylor and I had Travis Baldry, Legends and Lattes author, on the last page chewing, and he was talking about how great the Barnes and Noble's employees were with really pushing his book to the forefront, kind of forcing, we'll go, okay, like this is something people want to consume, and really helping it to propelling it forward. So, you can't underestimate, I guess, if you want to say it, underground forces that help, help promote your work. And, I think we're all grateful as authors to anybody who says anything about our books or takes the chance on them. So,
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, whoever's bought my book, and really appreciative. I'm sure Shauna feels the same, that we're just grateful that, someone wants to read it. That's probably one of the biggest fears when you read a novel, like, who's going to read it? Just my mom? Or, like,
Yeah, I think for readers it's the same. I mean, I remember like when I finished books that I haven't really heard people talk about too much, I go and search for it on YouTube and see who's talking about it, and then that's how I find booktubers sometimes, like small ones who find certain books that they've liked and they really talk about it, and then okay, so this person liked this book, I really like this book, so maybe I'll follow whatever this person is doing. So I think it also helps readers like find hidden gems in other books that they wouldn't otherwise find out about.
Yeah, I think that's a real book too, because all the big releases, they get so much marketing and publicity, and you see them everywhere. But most people want to read more than 4 or 5 books a year, and so BookTube is a really great way, like aside from the people who got the big budgets, like the Stephen King fairy tale, that's everywhere, obviously Stephen King, or maybe like Rebecca Kwong's Babel, which again is everywhere because she's such a fantastic author. But after I've read those 2 books in January, what am I reading the rest of the year? What are the recommendations? And I think people want to find those sort of diamonds, those hidden gems, and kind of being part of the conversation at the beginning of those stories. And I think that's the great thing about social media. It's the thing I love about it. It can be such a positive tool to connect people over books and over like shared experiences. And, I try to not kind of interact in any of the other social media stuff, and just trying to keep it to be like just about books, and then it's a very positive experience.
And João, we talked a little bit about self-publishing and traditional publishing. What are some things that you've considered in your journey with writing your book?
So I'm still obviously quite early on in my journey, but I've actually been trying for quite some time to be traditionally published. So that was my first option, but unfortunately that coincided with COVID, and I think the industry took a big turn in the years of the pandemic, and it also coincided with, I think, a bunch of the darker books, which is kind of what I'm writing, falling a bit off of the radar. A lot of the agents and I think editors were kind of looking for more upbeat books and things like that. So I think, as you can see with Legends and Letters and how well it's done, even though it was initially self-published, there's definitely more of an appetite now for at least in the mainstream realm for more cozy fantasy or like stuff like that. So I think for my book, self-publishing ended up being a bit more of a second route, but I think it's, now that I'm going through the journey, I think it's the right decision. I think the type of story that I'm trying to tell and the type of book that it is, and I think it just works really well with other books that I've seen in the self-publishing community. And I think I've always been a bit of a DIY enthusiast in many ways. So I think I really like having the say in things and being able to decide and make all the decisions and just basically, figuring out everything on my own. So even if I fail, then it's only on me. I cannot blame anybody else. I cannot blame, lack of marketing from the publisher, lack of support, lack of this and that. It's on me. And if I succeed, it's on me as well. So that's something that I can be proud of. So I can take the laurels if that's the case, but I can also take the fault and the blames if that's the case. And I think that's a choice that I'm very comfortable with. So yeah, that's basically where I'm at the moment. Yeah.
My favorite thing at the moment is, obviously I started off the year with a lot of book ones from self-pub, right? And getting towards the end of the year, there's a lot of book twos. Man, I love a book two. I really, really love a book two. It's like you get the taste of the word and you're like, I think I like that quite a bit, that book. And then you get thrust or get the opportunity to get thrust back in that world with those characters. And again, I can't wait to get in. And actually that engagement of, rather than just reading a lot of book ones that are starts of a series with these kind of ideas that are kind of different and you get a chance to really delve in. You go, oh man, these stories and characters are just so juicy to get into, and actually propelling that forward and not just relying on one book. It's two books now, and in your case, P.L, obviously your third book's coming as well, and yeah.
I think that
people will be
coincides.
rather steed it up. Yeah.
No, sorry. I think that coincides too, frankly, with and I don't know if Jero and Shauna can weigh in as authors and feel the same. I know for me, my second book was the hardest book I've ever written, but it was also a lot better than my first book. And I think as writers, we typically improve a lot, like from our first book to our second book, regardless of how we're published traditionally or self-published. I think that because as writers, we're always striving for this continuous improvement. I think that we have all this pressure with our second book, especially if our first book was somewhat successful. You're trying to improve. You're trying to address all these things that perhaps you got feedback from betas or just from reviews, and you're trying to hone your craft. And I know that I felt immense pressure with my second book to like up my game, right? And not that I didn't feel that with my third book, that I don't, but it just wasn't quite the same. Like I just felt slightly more relaxed. I mean, I'm never going to be. I don't think any of us at authors, the three of us authors, will ever feel comfortable and rest on our laurels. You know what I mean? I don't know if Brandon Sanderson is there or anyone of that caliber is able to do that either. But just I know with my second book was like, oh my god, this is just. Excuse me. I talked a lot about my fellow author friends, and there was a common thread there. We all felt that our second book was really tough sledding to get through, and just for a variety of multiplicity of factors, you just feel like, oh my gosh, it has to be so much better, and I have to do this and I have to do that. But and then at the end of the day, you write it and you put it out there, and it's up to the readers to decide whether you did better or not. So
Yes.
Could you agree, Shauna?
There's always pressure. Yeah, but I think in the first, well, I don't know. There's good and bad things about all the books. The first book, you have to do a lot of world building, and it has to be digestible to your readers. So I find that hard about book one, because mine's Irish historical fantasy. So I know loads of Irish history and Irish culture and all of that, and it's deciding how much people who know nothing about Ireland can handle. So I find kind of all that setup was in book one. So then book two, I could just go for it, and I didn't have to worry so much about setting up the character, setting up the where they were. The world is established. So I really enjoyed that about book two, that the story could just get going like immediately. You're off with a bang. And that husband read my first book and he really enjoyed it, but the second book, he was reading it and he just turned and looked at me and was like, I can't believe you did that. So maybe I've gone too crazy with my book too. I don't know. My editors might have to rein me in a bit. I don't know. Maybe I've gone too off on a tangent. I don't know, but I found book 2 fun to write. But yes, it's still 9 months away from being out, so I haven't got to the panic stage yet. So you could be talking to me in a few months, and I could be having a completely different answer.
I don't know. I found book 3 to be just relaxing. I just, I just wrote. It flowed. I felt okay. Now I'm starting to see my own improvement in book 3, even though I felt book 2 was still a step up from book 1. I don't know. Book 3 is just like, now I feel like is part of it. I think is just your own internal, confidence that once you wrote one book, some people like it. You've written book 2, okay, some more people like it. Then you feel like, okay, you know what? I have a better chance for people to like book 3 than not, as long as I keep getting better. And so I think maybe that's part of it. So
yeah.
Tori commented, my TBR is a mountain. You all need to stop writing awesome books, but don't. Lana, buying books and reading books are 2 different hobbies. I will never stop buying books, no matter how much my family tease me.
That's a good point.
Maggie, USA and UK fantasy isn't so small anymore, but in Germany, no one reads fantasy.
Oh.
It's more sci-fi dominated.
Oh. Wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. What did Matt say, sir?
Matt's fantasy book reviews. Hey, Matt. Fantasy and sci-fi need to get separated in the bookstore. I work for a politician and tried to get him to introduce a bill to mandate this by law, but couldn't quite convince him.
I stand by this idea completely.
Yeah, I vote. Sorry?
Where would you put fantasy sci-fi crossovers, though?
I don't know, but
where do you put historical and fantasy? You're gonna have things that always cross genres and be very successful. Like,
you can just put them everywhere, though.
Yeah,
just everywhere.
But I think Matt should become the politician. I vote for Matt, and then he can make that happen.
Yeah, he can sort this process.
Got to shout out a really big, another great book I read recently, sci-fi. I only read a couple of sci-fi books this year, but Goodbye to the Sun. I don't have it here, by Jonathan Navarre. Awesome book. Wow, amazing. If you like character-driven stuff, yeah, great book. Shout out to Jonathan Navarre. Just did a review about that on Goodreads, and fabulous book. So need to read more sci-fi next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
hey,
I've been reading
Epic. Where you been hiding, Epic?
Sorry, Shauna, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I've read a bit more sci-fi this year. I hadn't read any for a good while. I'm actually reading a book at the minute, which isn't out until about May 2023. It's called Ascension by Nicholas Spinge, and it's about a mountain that suddenly appears in the ocean, and it's like a science a team of various scientists go to explore how the mountain appeared and why it's there. But it is going to be huge. It is literary, maybe sci-fi, I would class it as. But really kind of really, really good. I feel like I'm not smart enough to read some of it, but I'm continuing on anyway.
What's everybody reading these days? What's on everybody's reading, or what's on your wish list? What's big for 2023? What's everybody getting into?
Well, I'm reading a book at the moment that Shauna's actually in.
Oh,
yeah, that's true.
Did you notice that as well, Steve? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I took a picture of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the 11th Cycle by Cian Arterlin. There's little forewords at the top of each chapter, and people that you recognize making appearances being people within the world. And so Shauna's not by herself there. I think Cian's put little nods to certain reviewers even and stuff in there, which are like lovely little Easter eggs that are in there. But 11th Cycle's really something. Oh man, there was a scene I was reading at the end of the sprint last night.
I'm so excited to read it.
It's one of the most upsetting scenes I have ever read in a book in my life. And normally I'm sturdy stuff when it comes. You kind of go, oh god, that's a bit rough. But I just went, oh my god, that is really another level to anything. And I think the book has trigger warnings right up front. And I think it's the one thing I'd say to anybody about that book is check the trigger warnings. If you're that type of reader who will be affected by something, you really need to check some of them in 11th cycle, because as brilliant as it is, there are some moments in it that you just go, oh man, that could really be something for somebody. And I think Andrew from Andrew's lead reads it said that. He says it's very hard to recommend that book to people with carte blanche because of those kind of couple of moments in it, but it is really good, like really good.
Yes, I'm very excited to read that. I'm hearing amazing reviews from everyone who's getting a copy. So I've pre-ordered my copy, and I can't wait to get it in. But I think is it the end of January or no, the 1st of February?
1st of February, yes, it is.
Yeah, so not too long to wait.
What are you reading, Shauna? What's on your what are you reading this time of year?
So December is I read loads in December, whenever it's the Christmas holidays. So I just finished Ryan Cahill's book, and I'm reading Ascension by Nicholas Binge. And before that, I read Barrow of Winter by Hannah Long, which is brilliant, really, really good. What did I read before that? I read Abby Jimenez's new book, which is out in May next year. Because whenever she was in Ireland, she gave me a copy, and that's brilliant too. But yeah, I'm reading loads of books, and I've got my TBR for next year all ready to go. So there's lots of indie, lots of trad, sci-fi, fantasy, historical fiction, some literary books as well. There'll be lots of books coming out next year, and also I'm not working anymore, or else I am working, but I'm now a full-time writer. So, but I do intend to read more. I need to spend more time reading.
What about you, João? What are you reading?
I've been reading a couple of things. So I've been listening again to the audiobook of Gunmetal Gods by Zamir Akhtar, and I'm also reading The Trials of Ashmount by John Palladino.
Yeah,
and
have to read that.
There was
I gotta
another
read
one.
Come on.
And I'm reading an anthology a horror anthology by C.C. Adams called Misery in Other Lines. So it's about London as a setting, and it's kind of like a horror Halloween tales for about the city of London, and especially the undergrounds, the subway in London, which is it's actually really good so far.
Steve, sounds like your kind of thing.
Yeah. I have my other screen up. I already added Ascension to my cart, and I'm thinking all these other books we're talking about. These are fun conversations, but I always end up buying books during them. Yeah.
Brandy's listening, so because you can't hide. You can't hide.
No, I can't. Yeah.
When the bill shows up.
Yeah, already, my fingers are already going. So yeah. I'm trying to be better about that. I'm trying to read what I have on hand, but we all know how that goes. So
yeah.
It's funny. I made a concerted effort to really read a lot of the books out of my shelf, and I'm down to like maybe 20 that I have, but I haven't read, that I've bought and I've had for ages. So my goal is to read those early in 2023, and then and I know I have a lot of ARCs and ARC copies and stuff after, more like reviewing stuff, and I'm my SBFPO reviewing books too. But my goal is to get those books that I have on the shelf and read them before I go and at least not buy 20 more books. Maybe buy 5 or 10, but not 20. Right away.
This is like a therapy meeting, PL, where you're saying you're down to 20 books on yourself, and everybody's nodding their heads, going, "Well done, PL." You're great.
That's
Impressive.
Only 20.
Yeah.
only 20. Yeah.
I'm doing well. I feel good now. I'm doing okay. So it's you guys that need the intervention, not me. Then.
I just don't count. It's easiest just to not count. Have them in different piles around the house, and it looks like 5 books in that room, 5 books in that room. You'll never know.
Yeah. I spread them out in audiobook, ebook, and physical books so that it doesn't look like that many.
Yeah.
Well, Kindles don't count. Kindle doesn't count. It doesn't matter what's on my Kindle that I've read. That's in cyberspace. So I don't need to count that. I'm just thinking physical. Books on my shelf.
How many unread books do you have on your shelf, Shauna?
Oh gosh.
Oh.
There could I got some for Christmas. So
here we go.
That doesn't count. That doesn't count.
I reckon there could honestly be like maybe 40.
It's not bad.
40.
That means
I would
60
sort
go
of.
right.
No, I'm saying 40. I'm saying 40, and I'm being honest.
That's not bad.
Definitely not 60. Because you know what I do? I do start the books I read, and if I feel it's a DNF, like I'll pass it on. Like I don't keep books that I'm not into or aren't working. So I don't I have loads of books on my shelf, obviously, but they're not all mine. Some of them are my kids and my husband's. So no, I wouldn't have if I wouldn't keep books on my shelf for years and not read them. They would have been passed on. I'll give them to my mom or my sister or even the library or wherever. If I had kept every single book I'd ever bought, this entire room would just be books. There would be no space for me to sit in here.
What about you, João? How many unread books do you have? Let's go total, since you like to
honestly,
to cheat.
I've got no idea. I try not to look at my Kindle. I think Kindle is the biggest culprit here. It's where most of them lie, and some of them have been there for 5-6 years already. And yeah, I mean, I tried to get to them at some point, but I'm very much of a mood reader. So books that if I'm not in the mood for, even though I know that I would probably like them in other occasions, I just stop at maybe like 10% or 15%, and then it's just so easy to search for another one that maybe I'm in the mood for. So I just have a bunch of books that are like 10% read, 15% read, and I just keep going them over and over and over again. And to be honest, I have no idea how many unread books I have got there. I really have no idea. I mean, I would say more than 50. Yeah, I mean, that's just a wild guess, to be honest.
Okay, Steve, you're not getting away though. You got to answer the question
DNF,
too.
I do DNF. I do DNF quite a bit, but I think I've become better at figuring out what I actually like, and that helps avoiding DNFs. So I'm quite picky with books now, and sometimes just the blurb I can tell, okay, this is really not my cup of tea, or this will be my cup of tea. But I mean, generally, I just kind of go by the opinions of reviewers and booktubers and people that I trust the taste, and usually they haven't really failed me yet, so that's good.
I'm afraid to count. I haven't counted. It's bad. It's really bad. Ebooks are bad because you can find them for a couple bucks sometimes. So, and you don't realize it until you download a bunch of them and you're like, wow, I just bought like 5 books this week. So I'm afraid to look. I don't even want to know. It's bad. It's not good.
Oh, sorry. What were you saying, Chris?
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. So.
No, I was just saying I only got a Kindle maybe last year, so I don't actually have many books on mine. But I was watching Book Talk, and there was a girl on there that was trying to get her Kindle unread to under 1,000 was target.
Wow.
So she had over 1,000 unread books on her Kindle, and I was just like, oh my god.
Wow. That's I mean, if you read if you're a prolific reader and you read 100 books a year, that's 10 years worth of books. Just backlog, right? So
That's
Yeah.
that's like 3 months for Andrew. You know, that's just
That's 1 month for Andrew.
yeah. So those prolific readers, man. I don't know. I think I tapped out at 80 books this year. I think that's a peak for me. I don't think I want to go much more than that. Maybe I'll have an odd year where I get 100, maybe when I'm retired from my regular job, but I don't even think then because I want to enjoy the books. I want to savor them, and I want to write my own books, and I want to do other things. Like reading is a big part of my life, but I think 100 books for me would be a lot. Even between being a blogger and reviewing, like that's a lot of books, right? So
Yeah.
I don't want stories to become disposable. Do you know that you just rinse through things and kind of don't sit and actually reflect? And I think reflecting on anything that you do is one of the most key parts of it. Whether it's your day or whether it's something you read or consume. The reflection is where the real joy and the staying power of something really comes along. So, like, I'm sort of investigating tabbing or something at the moment to kind of help me do that. To kind of let me sit down and read it. Like one of the other things I'm reading at the moment is Do Andrew's Dream of Electric Sheep, right? It's 193 pages long, but I can only do 2 chapters max at a time because the amount of ideas and things that are in each chapter, I'm like, I don't want to lose any of this because this is pure genius in these pages of ideas and the way it respects the reader to be able to work things out and the through lines and stuff. It's just like, I could blow through that book in a day, but I wouldn't actually get the enjoyment or the power of the book from reading it if I did that,
Yeah, I think for me that was like
that with Highland.
Sorry, Shauna, what was that?
Oh no, I was just saying I felt like that with Howland Dark when I was reading that. It's so complex and philosophical that I couldn't read lots at a time because it's just so many like good ideas and you want to think about it. But yeah, so I was just saying I kind of understood what Chris was saying there. But so, you go on.
No, that was an excellent point by Chris. Yeah, and I think for me, that book for me so far last year was Darkness That Comes Before. I mean, and it took me by surprise, and it was like I have to there's so much to cram into my brain in terms of it was different from Malazan. Malazan was just overwhelming in some parts, right? But Darkness That Comes Before was just like I just was soaking up the philosophical stuff, and it just really it just got to me, and I want to slow down because I want to just like Chris said, I want to savor every little drop, and I just that book was just and it shocked me. It crept up into my top reads of the year, and it just it was another Steve recommendation, and Zara from Books with Zara, another great booktuber, and I love that. But it was just so cerebral and it hit that spot, So
it's I've said it in the chat. I think yesterday some books beg to be read slowly. They actually look as you're making your way through it and you're thinking, God, I'll make good progress today. And they're like, no, you got to slow down and take this a bit at a time and really think about it. And those books are so often so rewarding.
Yeah. Jenny Wirt's books. You have to read Jenny Wirt's books slowly. You have to, because her command of vocabulary in the English language and the way she maximizes words and it's just you and it's so lush. You have to slow down and just, have your tea and just read that sentence and go back over it, and it's just phenomenal writing.
That's good. That's good.
The latest book that I've read that I've felt like that was The Dreams of the Dying. It's a German author. I forgot the name, unfortunately.
Nicholas.
Nicholas. I forgot his name. Sorry.
Yeah.
But it's a great book, and I felt like I had to savor it as something that needs to be experienced slowly.
Yeah, it's on my TBR too. I haven't got to it yet. It's on my TBR. That's a TBR. Oh, I don't know how I'm gonna read. I think it was either Shauna or Jo or Chris. I apologize. I think it was Jo. I'm getting much more discerning too about taking books that I like and reading those that I'm pretty confident I'm gonna like, rather because I there's something about me. Maybe it's a some obsessive thing. I cannot DNF a book. I have to finish it. I can't. That's a failing of mine. That really, But I because I always feel like there's books where if I just push through, I want to find something I like, and you know what? Frequently that happens. But there's times when I've kind of slowed. It's like, okay, I probably should have pulled the chute, but there's something about me, a completionist thing about me. I can't DNF books, and I don't. I just feel I owe it to the author who put all this time in the book, and that's just me. I'm not saying that's the way you should do it. You shouldn't be reading something you don't like and that's torturing you, but but now I'm much more selective. I think it was Jo that was saying that about getting what I like. I go much more on Rex now, the Steves of the world. Okay, Steve, what's Steve's reading? Oh, okay, that sounds like that's up my alley, and typically it is, or Taylor, or Tori that's been on here, Leo Petrick, Philip Chase, all the booktubers, Lana, Taylor, they all give really good recs. So I tend to, Andrew from Wizardry, I tend to like, okay, what are the booktubers reading? That looks interesting. I'll pick that up.
So
that's
many
the
great
way.
books.
Our friend Aaron had a question. The growth in popularity is great for readers, but how does it affect writers, do you guys think? What do you think about that, Shauna?
Well, I think there's a lot now. If you're in a growth genre, there's more readers, there's more potential to get your book. Then the flip side is, there's so many books coming out, and it can be a bit of a, for lack of a better word, to try and get your book out there. You need people to champion your book and to talk about your book, and that's not always easy. And so that so in a way, I've my books out through into bookstores, and I've had about my book, so that's been good for me. But I think I would have found self-publishing hard only on that aspect, not on the other stuff, but on the promotion side, because you have to now. That I don't think books get discovered unless the author is willing to somehow put themselves out there, whether it is through networking or connecting or paying for advertisement or whatever it is. That's the only downside, but the upsides are better. There's more people who potentially want to read your book. There's a better community. The community that there is now with fantasy is amazing. I wish I had this 20 years ago. It would have been fantastic. And I think the quality and the diversity of the books that we're reading, I'm talking about historical fantasy and someone else is talking about grimdark. There's like sci-fi fantasy mixes, there's literary fantasy, dystopian fantasy. It's the genre itself is branching out and broadening, and there's so much interesting work to read. And I think that's why we're having such a good time. We're not reading The Wheel of Time over and over again, or Tolkien ripoffs, or over and over. But the genre is so broad that there is always something new and completely different to find. So it's mostly upside. The side is just maybe just trying to reach your audience because there's just a competition.
What do you think about that, PL? How does popularity
How do you guys feel like getting your books out there?
I have to say that, yeah, I see so much, as to echo what Shauna said, I see so much more upside than if rare, little, if any downside, simply because now, to Shauna's point about the writing community and it being such a positive and uplifting and amazing place, some of the biggest champions of my books are other writers. And I'm not sure if Jo and Shauna, you find the same. And all of them are fantastic writers, far better writers than me, writers with far bigger audiences and followings. And, some of them have recommended my book. And then that gets a lot of people who, read their work into my book. And, and I think the one thing about being an author that I think all of us feel is that, as much as writing in some ways a very solitary endeavor, we don't succeed in isolation. We all boost each other up, and we all, as writers, we're the biggest champions of when we read a book that we love and we get an author that we connect with, we're shouting that to the high heavens, man. We're bragging about how great our friend so and so's book is, and we're plastering all over social media, and I think we all do that. And I think that in itself has really propelled books in general up. And I think even the books that might not normally see the light of day in terms of the exposure are getting that. And again, this is where I have to give hats off to the booktubers, the real ones like Steve, and people like Taylor and Tori and Andrew and Lana and so many others, Patrick, Philip Chase, AP Canavan, you name it, that they get those books out there. And those books that often are, blaze under the radar books, got to give a shout out to as well. They get those books that are not necessarily up in the big consciousness. They boost them up, and suddenly, next thing you know, and all it takes is, it's almost like, I don't know how you guys feel. It's like it can be like lightning in a bottle, but I also feel that sometimes it's just it sounds cliche. It's that one big break. Suddenly someone like Andrew just finds your book, reads it, puts it on his channel, and suddenly, boom, you have an audience, right? It just takes that one person, that one booktuber or influencer that says that thing, or not, just someone just happens to see that, and then they catch on, and then but I think overall it is extremely positive for it's because we're all bringing each other up, we're all succeeding together, and it's making just bringing such a richness to fantasy, as Shauna said. It's just, I think it's an incredible time, a very thrilling time for to be a writer.
What do you think, João? What's your opinion?
I would probably echo what both of them said. I mean, great points. The only thing I would say is that if you're a querying author, so if you're still querying, and if you're still in the process of getting an agent and all of that stuff, it can be quite hard, because you're competing with a lot of people that, even though you're all writers and you're all kind of in the same community and lifting each other up, you're all kind of chasing the same limited spots that agents would have, and to add to their lists and stuff like that. Other than that, I think for published authors, and for especially in the self-publishing community, I think it's not really a competition. I think it's more of a camaraderie. Like, I really don't see any authors with a competing mindset of like, I have to sell more books than this guy, or I have to be better than that guy. I think it's more like what P.L. was saying. Like, you found a book from someone that you really like it, and you shout to the heavens about it. And I think that's just how writers lift each other up, and the growth in popularity, it just makes it even better. It's just, you have all these books now that you probably wouldn't have access to, like Shauna said, like the Tolkien clones that came out in the 80s and the 90s and things like that. Now it's all different. Now you have cozy fantasy, you have comic fantasy, you have grimdark, you still have those Tolkien clones. They haven't gone away, but you have like fantasy inspired by not just medieval Europe, and you have so much more to choose from. And I think it benefits everyone. Like, for the writers, it's also a great opportunity for them to explore stories that they know will have a market. Back in the 80s and 90s, there was this misconception that fantasy had to be medieval fantasy and nothing else sold. And now we know that's not really the case, or maybe the tastes have changed. I just think it's just very, very positive overall.
Yeah. To Joel's point, Shauna, did you have any concerns about the approach you took with your book? Was that a concern that maybe it was different than most fantasy?
Yeah, like it was a difficult book to suppose comp. Whenever you're trying to get an agent, they want you to compare your book to other books. And when you're doing something a bit different, then it's difficult. It's you're not writing something that there is a kind of blueprint for. But that's why getting an agent is difficult, because trends matter. And I just sort of accidentally fell into a trend, in that my book is historical fantasy with Irish mythology. And when I wrote it, it's a book I'd probably been writing or planning 2 years. And my previous book had been historical fantasy as well. And so whenever I was subbing this book, though, kind of mythology as a genre was really having a bit of a moment. So we were getting a lot of Greek retellings, and Shelley Parker Chan's book, She Who Became the Sun, had just come out and was doing really well. And I think Rebecca Kwong's first series is like Chinese historical fantasy. And so it had written a book that somebody suddenly went, oh, that's sort of similar now. I can sort of see where this would go on the bookshelf now. And it's Irish, so it's different again. You know, it's slightly the same, but slightly different. So I was just very, and I think that's the thing about getting a traditional publishing deal. Sometimes it's luck and your book being a right fit for that moment. Because I know the book I had previously written is very similar, and at that time it was just a no. You know, Irish historical fantasy mythology, and you know, that's not in right now. Now I'd say The Children of Gods and Fighting Men is a better book. So that's why it got picked up. But I do think the kind of mythology historical revival really helped the chances of my book getting published. But then, like, even when I have an agent and I had a publisher, you know, even then it's hard because you have to convince the market publisher that, you know, they want to spend money on your book and not somebody else's book, and not all books are marketed equally. So I think you're always to prove yourself and to prove that your book is marketable and is sellable and people are going to like it. And I've just been very lucky that my editor at Head of Zeus really, the marketing team really got behind it. But I don't know if that's everyone's experience with trad. I would suspect it's not. You know, not every debut does well. You know, not every self-published book does well. It's very much, I don't know, a bit of luck, a bit of trying to find your audience and people giving your book a chance. And I'm not quite sure how my book has done, really. You know, it maybe take me a couple of years to see kind of how I did and where the book landed. But so far it seems to be doing well. So I don't know.
I see from my point of view, like, Shauna, you push your book an awful lot. You market it as if you were self-publishing, if you know what I mean. You've definitely got that mindset in what you're doing. So it's not just luck. You're doing a lot of the groundwork yourself and trying to build those connections with people as if you were self-published, and you know what I mean, and not taking it that it's somebody else's job, for instance, to kind of do that for you, you know, and hopefully you're seeing the rewards of that, you know.
I think so. I think I had actually made the decision to self-publish whenever I sent out my last batch of agent letters. That was my last batch, and then I had already booked an editor, but they had a really long waiting list, like about 4 or 5 months, and so I just thought I'll have one last word here and just see if I can get an agent and a trad deal, and it did. But so I think I sort of was almost half into the self-published mindset of trying to talk a bit about myself and about my books and what I was in. Then I just sort of got into the community, and then it's the community that sort of kept me here because I love it so much. And I love talking about other people's books and about fantasy and science fiction and all of that. And I've got loads of friends in the community. So I think trad authors are missing out if they're not here, because there's there's great people and great books and great conversations and new genres, subgenres to discover that you're not seeing in kind of the mainstream bookstores.
Yeah,
And,
Tori said it.
Yeah, I thought João was trying to self-replicate for a minute there. I hope I think it looks like you're having connection issues.
Yeah, maybe frozen. But,
well, we can smooth that out. But in the meantime, Tori, I love that PL. I focus heavily on uniting self-published trad books on my channel, promoting fantasy books regardless.
Yeah.
And, just want to say congrats, Joseph, to J.R. Carroll. He just hit 1,000 subscribers.
Hey, congrats.
Yes, big, huge congrats. He's killing
Congrats,
it. with his
indeed.
channel.
Congrats. Yeah.
Great
Tori,
stuff.
Tori's killing it too. She's I can definitely
Good to know.
attest that she fantastically promotes self-pub authors. Kudos to her for all she does, and she's an awesome person. And check out her channel. She's got some great content on there too. So.
And from here, hey everyone, this is
Yay.
exciting to be the last 2022 Friday chats. Sorry you couldn't make it, Mihir. Maybe we'll have to get you soon.
What's up, here?
Our friend Carl, conversations like this are great. If you are watching repeat guests, after a while, an interest will arise in what the guests are writing. A face and personality will be associated to someone you might newly follow.
Good point. Good point.
Our friend Joseph, the difference is that my second book was a different character, so the pressure wasn't as bad, but my third was much harder because it was a sequel to book one.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I get that.
And my son did get your package today, Joseph, so I want to say thank you. He was very excited. So he found it and opened it, so thank you again for that. And just finished All Systems Red. Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of that one either. Wasn't my cup of tea. And Tori is reading Deathless Beast by Andrew D.
Yeah.
It's
I want
fabulous.
to get that.
I've heard of that. That sounds, and Phil Quantrill, Echo Saga sounds like he's another big author that.
Lots
I
of
don't know when
books
I'm
in
gonna
that
get to him,
series.
Yeah, I got to get to that too.
And Epic Tales, I've been reading Black Company. I love the prose so much. Very unique writing style. Stephen P.L. If you haven't, I highly recommend.
I've read Glenn Cook Black Company. It is awesome. It's very short, tight sentence. It's very, but it is explosive. Like great, grim, dark. Like probably one of the foremothers of grim dark. I think Glenn Cook's stuff is excellent. I've only read Black Company, but yeah, that's an awesome book.
I'm trying not to pay attention. I'm trying not to. I'm trying to resist. It's been interesting watching some booktubers top reads of the year. Even those who mainly read fantasy sci-fi have much varied lists.
Yeah.
And Alicia is doing what you own challenge for 2023. That's very smart.
Good idea, Alicia.
Yeah. 20. I have 150 on my physical TBR
Whoa.
on my shelf.
Okay.
That doesn't count ebooks.
I don't feel so bad.
I don't feel so bad.
Yeah.
Carl has easily 100 unread books on his shelves.
But it looks so pretty. Like let's see, books on shelves look amazing. You know, even if you're not reading them, you're getting some joy out of them. Attesting to Lana's idea that buying books and reading books is different hobbies. Displaying books is a third one.
PL just enabling everyone. That doesn't count.
That's me, Lana. I'm an enabler. You know me.
Yeah, PL should feel good about that TBR. Man, I think I have 500 books on my shelves. I use the library for 95% of my reads and only buy them for self-pub authors who aren't at the library. That's smart.
Yeah, that's amazing. Kudos.
Yeah.
Layla had a question for the authors. How do the authors balance reading with writing schedules? When I read, I feel like I should be writing and vice versa. Shauna, how do you balance that?
Well, writing, it used to be different, but now that I am writing full time, writing is the daytime. So drop the kids off to school and I'll write for a good few hours. And then reading is more kind of once I keep them, that's when I'll get the book out and read. This year hasn't been good. I only read 28 books this year, which is quite low for me. So I definitely want to pick that up a little bit more next year. But I think this year I was working and writing and promoting my book and, trying to do everything. And then so when I was going to bed, I was reading like half a chapter because I was so tired. So I'm hoping I will not be so tired in 2023 and, I'll get through more just by not being so sleepy.
What about you, João? Have you been balancing reading and writing?
It's tough. Mostly not really because of the writing, but because of the day job. That's really what screws up my schedule. If I didn't have a day job, I could pretty much do both all day, and I'd be super happy. But with the day job, I tend to prioritize my writing, and then I read if I have energy after writing, because I do write in the evenings. So usually it's I wake up early for my day job, and then writing in the afternoons or in the evenings, and then I, like Shauna said, I might read half a chapter or a chapter just before I go to bed or something like that, and that usually does it. But yeah, I haven't really been reading that many this year. Like I've been relying a lot on audiobooks when I'm doing chores or when I'm hitting the gym or something like that, or when I'm on a plane or going to an airport or something like that. It really does help having audiobooks. It really gets me out of reading slumps. And that's basically my trick. I just use all the time that I can that I'm not writing and I'm not reading and I'm not working to basically, audiobooks or ebooks or Kindle, whatever.
PL, how do you do it? How do you do all this stuff you do?
I guess I'm obsessive. Part of it. I work shift work, but I have the advantage of we're empty nesters now, Deb and I, so no more little kids running around. So hats off to you that are raising young families and still finding time to work full time and or write or be full time mothers or fathers and or write. Like hats off to you because I know how crazy it is. But yeah, I work around the clock. I guess you could say I'm a blogger now, and I think that's also helped me in some ways though because I'm a planner and I crave structure. So being a blogger with the wonderful Before Go blog led by the incredible Beth Talbot, I have to give Beth a big shout out. I have a planned reading schedule for blogging stuff. For example, we're in the middle of the self-published fantasy blog off. We all contribute, everybody on the team, and we read a certain amount of books. And now we're at the finalist stage. So we all pick some finalists we're going to read and do critiques and reviews for that. So there's that. And then, of course, I have my own personal planned reading that I strongly believe that old tenet, that Stephen King tenet, that I think a lot of us writers feel that way, that to become a better writer, you have to read a lot. So I make it part of my writing. My reading is part of my writing because I believe that honestly helps me develop my craft. So I force myself, but reading is a pleasure. So before bed every night, I've gone to the habit of no computer, no blue screen, a couple hours before, and I read. If I'm on a day off, if I'm on the exercise bike, I have a book out, right? If I have a quiet moment where I'm not doing chores or vacuuming laundry or something, I'm reading typically if I'm not writing, right? And I spend a lot of time on social media. Which is a big, it's a real positive. It's so enriching, but yet it's a drain. It's something that's so phenomenal. I would never enjoy a portion of any of the success, the modest success I have in writing if I wasn't so active on social media. And I live for things like this, finite conversation. I look forward to this stuff, and page chewing that's been a game changer in my life. It's one of my favorite things to do, but yeah, it takes up a lot of time. And I don't know how. I guess I pose the same question to Steve because I don't know how he does it, because with all the things that he does. And you have young kids and a young family, but I don't know. I think it's priorities. Like my life is much more segmented now, and I have that ability because I don't have young kids anymore, and I have grandkids. So and all my kids are spread out, and they live. The closest one lives an hour and a half away. So I have a lot more time to devote to, I spend a lot of time messaging my kids on video conference and stuff like that, talking, texting. But, now I have more time for me at this age now that I'm a gray beard and a granddad. So, which is kind of cool. Right. And when I retire, once I get rid of that full-time job, I'm grateful for my job. But once I can retire in 6 years, it's going to be, I think I'm going to double my productivity. I think I can actually do that much more, right? And I probably will, God willing. I'm alive and healthy. I believe I will. So just wait until I'm not working anymore in a full-time job. You'll see. So
Yeah, we should do this again in 6 years and see where you are, PL, on your reading.
Insane. Our friend Paramita's here.
Parmita, wonderful.
Ready? I don't give Steve a hard time for buying books, then I can justify my book buying habits. It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Happy Friday, Drew.
Hey,
Drew. Epic. I mirror your feelings on The Darkness That Comes Before, PL. That is a book to take your time with and then read again and realize you missed a ton in the first read.
So amazing. So incredible.
Paramita, Shauna, I loved the Children of Gods and Fighting Men. The writing, the characters, the blend of historical and fantasy elements was just perfect. Can't wait for the sequel.
Oh, thank you
Gotta
so much.
read that up my TBR.
Very good stuff. I think Paramita will be there with us she'll be in the chat for the discussion. So
I'm hoping I could buy the book
I'm
before
really
then.
looking
And yeah.
forward to that.
have
Yeah.
you done a spoiler one yet, Shauna?
No.
No?
So this would be the first time talking about spoilers and getting into the why characters did things, and so I'm really looking forward to that, and not just sort of giving a general overview of the story. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Gonna have to get practicing my Irish pronunciation of the names.
I know. Yep, I'll be quizzing you.
Oh man, can't do it.
Drew had a question. PL, do you have recommendations for where to start with Jenny Wirt's works?
I haven't read the vast majority of her books because she's been writing for 5 decades and has probably written over 40 novels. And some of them are co-written. Her signature series is the War of Light and Shadow series. That's 11 books, and she's just finishing up the last one now. My favorite book by her so far is To Ride Hell's Chasm. It is my favorite standalone book ever, period. It is phenomenal. The world building is exceptional in a standalone, and the character work is just, I personally, from what I've read, Drew, I recommend To Ride Hell's Chasm. It has some really compelling themes. A lot of it has to do with racism and bigotry. And but she's written a lot of books. Some are not as she writes very densely, beautifully. It's very dense. But some of her earlier books, I understand, and some of her smaller series aren't as dense. And one of the series she's very well known for is the Empire series, co-written with Raymond Feist. That's a big series that now apparently they're going to turn into a movie or TV show or something like that. So that's also highly regarded. So I don't know if you got that.
So my favorite series of all time, PL, actually, all time. Yeah,
no.
it's but myself and my wife actually, we both read it separately, and like the Empire series is, I just changed how I looked at books. It was so good, really strong female character, and a fantasy novel where it's not all about magic. It's very much about power, personality, and the power of individuality and stuff. It's just beautiful series. Like, I'm gonna reread it this year. I think Alan's doing a read along of it this year, so I'll probably join in at the stages over that this year.
That's amazing. Yeah. So Drew, I mean, Chris has read that. I haven't read that yet. It's on my TBR, but yeah. So Chris is a good guy there in terms of Jenny. Yeah, but her World Lights and Shadow series, it is just. I've read the first 4 books. I'm going to read the 5th one probably in January. Just phenomenal. It's no one writes like Jenny Wirtz. Nobody. She belongs to be mentioned with the George R. Martins and the Robert Jordans and the Tolkiens, and she's that good a writer and that iconic writer, in my opinion. So, but
and she's way cool as well. The interactions that you have with her, it's ridiculous.
She's super nice. Yeah,
she is a wonderful, one of the warmest person here. He's so knowledgeable. I'm honored to call her friend. We chat fairly regularly, and she is just a beautiful person. Just amazing.
Carla, I can't DNF a book either. They have to been times a book I've been reading has been fine and nothing wrong, or nothing more than the last 50 or 60 pages blow me away. It's tough. It's tough to know when to throw in the towel. Lana, I'm getting better at DNFing, but it has to be really bad. Usually it's grammatical or formatting issues rather than plot characters issues or inconsistency. João, when do you DNF or do you DNF?
Usually I can tell within the first maybe 100 pages if it's going to be my jam or not. But I think most of my DNFing, it's purely subjective. I don't think it has anything to do with the quality of the book. It might be the right book for other people. And sometimes I tell my friends, you should really pick this up, books that I DNF, because I know that it's specific to this person's taste. And it just didn't work for me. So that's mostly, And I can tell pretty much within the first 100 pages if it's going to be for me or not.
What about you, Shauna?
I don't read all that often, but I do sometimes. I would give a book a good sort of 30%, and if I'm really just not, it's just not grabbing me. I also, those books that I'm just not enjoying, I then don't read for ages because I don't want to go back to that book, and so then I'm not reading anything. So and I just, so there's no point slogging through if it's not enjoyable, and it's not always that the book is bad. It's just sometimes if I feel I've read that book before, it's too similar to something I've already read, that can really put me off a book. Or sometimes if I find the female characters are like very two-dimensional, or there's bugbears that I have that other people maybe doesn't bother them so much, but I sometimes just can't get past. There's so many books, if a book's not for you, it's it's okay to set it down. But it doesn't happen too often, I think. I'm quite what I'm picking up in the first place, so I'm usually pretty sure that I'll like it. But yeah, I'm not afraid to set a book down either if it's not working.
I mean, here, OPL, you're too nice. You got to be a little bit more cruel at DNFing. Pardon me, I DNF so much, it's kind of embarrassing. I can't confirm. Kudos, life is too short. Joseph Bernicer, I'm all about competing with these other guys.
Hey,
Every DNF is a person giving a chance to a new book, nothing to be ashamed of.
that's good.
Joseph's stuff is high on my TBR too. I gotta get to reading his stuff too. Another great author.
Yeah, I'd say Joseph's got the best Amazon photo of anybody. You know the author photo where you get to follow the author? Just check out Joseph's. I think Joseph's
Okay.
is amazing.
His covers are awesome. I know that much.
Amazing. Yeah.
Covers are amazing.
JBJ Blaze. JBJ. Somehow, even my feelings about publishing content prefers independent. And our friend Parmith has a question. If you were asked to assemble a Friday Conversations panel of authors, living or dead, that you would have to listen in on, but be too intimidated to attend, who would be on that panel? Oh, that's a tough one. What do you guys
with
think?
these questions?
That's a great question. I got that in my head already. Like that's for sure.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Go for it.
It's Stephen King for sure, because the man is just such a prolific writer, and I would just love to know how he's come up with some of these groundbreaking ideas in terms of horror, and just like the guy's just Stephen King for sure. I believe definitely Tolkien would be someone who I'd like to N.K. Jemisin, she's alive, and she's brilliant, and I would love to she's just such an intellect. I'd love to listen to her talk. Some of them are, it's funny. Some of them I've either spoken to or heard seen on camera, and like Ken Louis is somebody who, and I missed that episode of Space Train. Steve and Tim, the guy is just, oh my gosh, like wow, I could listen to him talk for hours. He is exceptional. Janny Wirtz, who I talk to, a couple times a day sometimes, like who is just, again, brilliant and phenomenal. So those are probably some of my top ones. So yeah.
Very cool.
What do you think, Shauna? Who would be on your list?
Well, I've got lots of writer friends now, from various kind of Twitter groups and Discord groups. So I maybe like to have some of them along. Mark Lawrence, I'd be quite friendly with. I think he'd be fantastic. he's read lots of books. He's well read and a fantastic writer himself. And then I'm also friends with Joe and Kane Ardalan, who wrote 11th Cycle. So I'd love to have that as well. And then also, if I'm sort of thinking of older writers or going to the dead part of that question, what about like Alexandra Dumas and like Charlotte Bronte and Tolkien and some of those authors, like Charles Dickens as well? You know, what was it like to be a writer 100 years ago? You know, where did you get all your ideas from? And Alexandre Dumas, because he wrote a lot of historical fiction as well, not just like the Three Musketeers and the Count of Monte Cristo. So I think he would be very interesting.
What about you, João? Who would be on your list?
I've been trying to think about it since you guys were talking. I would probably go with Tolkien, Joe Abercrombie, Cameron Hurley, and Steven Erikson, I would say. Yeah.
Nice.
Very
Chris,
simple, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good one. What about you, Chris?
Oh man, this is really tough because actually this is one of the nice things about page turn is the amount of times you click on an episode and you're like, I don't know this person at all, and then you kind of like, I could just sit and listen to talk to them for hours upon hours and hours. That was kind of the Travis Baldry episode. I'd kind of stuck it on thinking I'll fall asleep in about 5 minutes, and then by the end of it, it was just buzzing. You know, it's just kind of like that. But King would definitely be on mine as well. I just think King's just fascinating me. This is such his own style, and how he approaches writing. I would love to know about how he gets started and what his feedback was when he first started. I think that would be really interesting to hear. Terry Brooks, I would quite like to hear from as well. Terry Brooks was kind of my gateway into an awful lot of this as well, and kind of sort of gets a bit of hate or something now. I don't know. There seems to be a lot of people pushed back against Terry Brooks, and then there's others that are championing that cause. And then I don't know actually. Other than that, because I was trying to think of my favorite series, and then I'm like, but I don't really even think that my favorite series necessarily equals the people that I like to really have the conversation with either. You know. In that way, maybe somebody like an Ed Brubaker, somebody from the comic world, I think would be really interesting. Yeah, I think that would be a really interesting one to go because they approach obviously stories from a slightly different medium. But I think that'd be really cool.
Those are great ones. I kind of would like to get someone like R. Scott Becker because I hear he's very reclusive. He doesn't really do a lot of news, and he's brilliant. Now his books, one of my favorite. Like, I'd love to imagine getting him on page chewing, Steve. Like, you know, that would be. Hey, we're gonna aim for the stars, right? So why not? Who knows where we can bring him out of his wherever he's hiding.
Exile.
Yeah. Get him on. But yeah. That's
fantastic. I was gonna. And then you have people that just are great interview people that really interview well. But like R.J. Barker would be one that I've seen in numerous streams. Is always really entertaining and really quirky, and his books are obviously great as well. You know, people like that. Yeah.
The good thing about letting all of you guys go first is I have time to listen to your answers and figure out my own. I think Baker, Maya Angelou. I think it'd be fun to talk to. I don't know, maybe I think
that's an excellent one.
Garth Ennis. I would love to talk to.
Yeah.
From the comic world, and who else? Maybe somebody like Poe or someone.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Great question. Do you fellas prefer your books read by yourself, aloud, or in your head? In audiobook format, for me, it's Audible, despite having difficulty lately keeping a focus, even with A Drowned Kingdom.
No,
the audiobook for A Drowned Kingdom is excellent.
Thank you, Stephen JBJ. I'd like to hear whatever else is to say, but the reason I'm going to go first is mine's probably short because I don't really listen to audiobooks. I listen to my own. I was very involved with the production of that, but I'm not really. My wife is a big audiobook person. She loves consuming them, but I don't really listen to audiobooks per se. I've listened to a couple only. So I know that I prefer to when I edit, I read my books out loud. I'm not sure if Jill or Shauna do the same, but part of my editing process is, after it comes back from the editor and, I'll do, line edits and stuff. I'll be like, okay, I'll read it out loud because I find I catch the most errors, especially those silly grammatical or spelling errors that way. But yeah, I prefer to read my books out loud that way. But I mean, if I'm just going to read, I don't know. That's actually at least an interesting question, which maybe we can expand on, especially for the authors here. If you like to read your books after they're written, because that's a very I find that's very varying answers depending from author to author. But yeah, I prefer to read them in my head mostly, but only out loud for editing.
What about you, Shauna?
Yeah, so I read my books at my, like when I'm editing as well, at the kind of final stages, because I think it kind of helps you get with the flow of the prose and the dialogue, and especially because so my characters are Irish, and I wanted to kind of keep an Irish flow of speech, but not to be exaggerated. And I think sometimes Irish accents are exaggerated in books. So for me, saying it out loud and speaking it is really important. Otherwise, I would worry that I would either not have enough or have too much. So I read all my books to myself. But audiobooks in general, I find them really difficult to listen to. I think, and I'm working, and well, before I was working, I have a very noisy life. And in the evening, if I put on an audiobook, it just feels like noise, and that someone's like talking at me, and it's not enjoyable. But in saying that, I've been listening to the audiobook of Howling Dark, and I think because I was already into the story, because I'd already read Silence, I actually can listen to the audiobook, and I'm really enjoying it. And then I did listen to the audiobook of my book because I hadn't read it after my final edits were handed. I was scared to actually read it in case there was mistakes. But when the audiobook came out, I did put that on, and I actually really enjoyed it because the actress who narrates it kind of puts her own spin on it. So it was slightly different way of digesting my book. So I think listening to books can be good, and I have enjoyed them. But in general, there's just nothing better for me than just to have like a book in my hands and to sit down and to have a bit of just peace and quiet. And that's when I get really absorbed into books. Sometimes I'm reading and my mum would come in or my husband, and they would start talking to me, and I cannot hear a word they say. I'm completely inside the book and into what's happening.
What about you, João? What's your preferred way of absorbing?
Sorry, I was reading. I mostly read it by myself. I don't really like reading it aloud. I only read aloud when I'm editing my book, and yeah, just the act of reading it out loud is just, I don't know, it's just a little a little weird for me. I don't know if I enjoy it too much. I prefer just reading it for myself and giving myself time to go back if I have to, and things like that. Yeah.
What about you, Chris? What's your preferred?
Oh, I don't know. I go round and about an audiobook. Sometimes it's great to stick on an extra book a month, and then other times there's just nothing going in at all. I've just done half an hour, and I'm like, I have no idea anything that happened there whatsoever. What I often find actually helps with that is kind of doing immersion reading for a while. So like start a book and have the ebook at the same time and kind of go along. It helps usually break the barrier. I even find that when I'm reading, even when you're reading a novel, the paperback version, reading it aloud actually helps you engage with the text, even for a chapter or something like that, to kind of get your kind of feeling for the flow of the language, etc. So I kind of bounce around, but mostly it's and I'm the weird one apparently, reading hardcovers. I really like reading hardcovers. This seems to be a sort of controversial opinion. People find them unwieldy, but I really like the hardcover experience of laying a book flat in front of me and going for it. People mustn't read on their lap, I think is the thing. They kind of like to hold it in one hand, and sure, a hardcover is tough for for one hand, but reading hardcover is my favorite thing. Yeah.
Joao, are we the only? Or are you with me? Or are you with them about hardcovers?
Yeah, no. I mean, I really like hardcovers, but mostly as a collectible item or something that it's my prized possession. I don't really read in hardcovers. Yeah.
I'm not alone. Okay.
What no love for hardcovers? I'm telling you, fantasy books, especially with the maps and the family trees, like it's just I just think it lends itself to beautiful hardcovers. What's
like
the bendy? You want the bendy
bend,
stuff
with the bend. I want to have the cover a little, to have some flexibility.
You see, but we don't really get trade paperbacks here. That's the thing that I would say. It's all very mass market paperbacks, which are kind of often very small, and they are. I have this thing about margins on the inside. When I have to really bend a spine, I'm like, I don't even want to read this book anymore. I'm destroying it if I'm looking at it, and it kind of puts me off that reading experience because I'm always fighting the inner margin. So if I find a book that's a really nice inner margin space, like Trials of Ice Mount paperback, honestly, just marvelous for the spacing that it has on the inside. I like John had talked it, like it increases his page count at a cost per book, but I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's true. Sebastian's here. I hope I don't have to wait until retirement to have the time to write.
No, another author's on my TBR.
Yeah, we'll be discussing the Purple Prince in February the 6th, I think. So
I love that name. I love that name. I have a character in my universe that's called the Purple Prince, and I love that name. I gotta, for that reason alone, I have to buy his book. So.
Beautiful book too. Beautiful book. I DNF video games and a few TV shows, but especially audiobooks. Now that I've Googled what those initials mean. Okay. I think Shauna, you mentioned earlier about having like a noisy life and you tune out noise. That's what a struggle for me with audiobooks is that I tune things out. You ignore things, and then I think Chris had mentioned you're listening for half an hour and you're like, I don't even know what just happened. I'm just like, it's just noise.
Yeah, I really struggle, especially with scripted text, an audiobook. If it's dialogue, something like Jim Butcher's Dresden Files, very dialogue heavy, very action heavy. Audiobook's great for it. You can really get a feel for it. But if it's very descriptive text, it's just not going to work for me in audio at all.
Pardon me with this answer. Ursula K. Le Guin, Octavia E. Butler, Mervyn Peake, and then because I'm mean, J.R.R. Tolkien and Michael Moorcock.
Okay, so she wants mostly older or deceased authors in her, I guess. Oh.
Bring them back. Yeah.
Eddie.
He's
Tolkien,
awesome. Brooks
Eddie's
and Donaldson.
Awesome. Donaldson. That's another great author. Probably
Thomas Covenant.
Forget Thomas Covenant. Oh.
Dickens and Dewis, that serialized Friday conversation, which goes on for months. Mahir can confirm after meeting Terry Brooks in a bookstore, he's a lovely person and very humble.
Oh, okay. Amazing.
And JBJ Blaze is going. I'm getting through it, just as the rest of my library snails pace, but surely.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you reading it, so thank you.
Pardon me, the question inspired by Shauna's comment about female characters. Is gender something you proactively tackle in your writing, either in terms of characterizations or themes? How important is it to you? What do you think, Shauna? How do you approach that?
Yes, so obviously I've got two female protagonists in my novel. Kind of when you're talking about historical fiction that is centered around war, it's not normal to have female protagonists. Normally it's the male warriors or the kings making all the decisions. But I really wanted to pick female protagonists and to talk about war and society in a different way. Kind of a lot of the fantasy books and the historical fiction books I read, you have your Uhtred of Bebbanburgs and Ned Starks and kind of the heroes, but kind of war, the fallout of war isn't heroic or, it's terrible for the people who have to live through it. And I think I wanted some of that perspective into the story. and not to be kind of like man bashing or any of that, but just to kind of, what is war? What realistically is that like for people who have to live through it? So yes, I wanted to have two strong female voices, but that come from completely different perspectives as to how to better their lives. So one of the characters is all about self-interest and her family's self-interest, and that accumulating power will equal safety for her. And then the other female protagonist is all about, well, there's no good it being just safe for me. It needs to be safe for everybody, for society to, and to think about, well, why are these wars always happening? What is it that's driving the kings in the land to always be at odds with each other? And so that's sort of where I came from. And I think, if I look around at society in the modern times, how to be a woman in society is very divisive, and there's different opinions that people have, and some women are so amazing at uplifting other women, and some women are the opposite, and it's a competition. And I'm kind of looking at all of that and trying to talk about that in a way that's maybe palatable. And that's the great thing about fantasy, is that you can talk about real world issues, but not like it's in your face, and it's you can kind of draw themes out and put them into settings that are slightly different, but people can still think about the real world implications of how we behave as a society. So yeah, it is a big theme, and it is important that we kind of think about gender and society, and how we can operate and live together in a kind of a better way than perhaps society has allowed in the past.
That's well said. And João, what about you? What's your do you have a approach to that?
I think it's a little tricky, because I try to be very conscious of where I stand on this, because I'm obviously like a European white male, and so my view of things is not going to be the same of someone who's a female, obviously. But I try to be conscious of what I'm writing, and I have multiple female beta readers who often call me out on things and point out things that I should change, and things I should include more, or things I'm not really listening, or things I should be doing. And I think it's just common sense for most of things. It's just being aware that there are differences in society in terms of how people are portrayed, but I try to portray all my characters in equal fashion, regardless of gender. So men can be good and bad, women can be good and bad. So my characters always fall within the spectrum of good or evil, no matter who they are, no matter what their background is, no matter what their gender or sexual orientation is. And usually that's kind of my approach. Like, I think everyone can be a dick to a certain extent, no matter who they are. And yeah, that's usually my approach. It's not something like I'm not proactively trying to discuss gender. I think because it would be a bit presumptuous for me to do so. But it's something I try to be aware of, like the gender questions that we have in society.
What about you, P.L.? And what's your approach to that?
Well, having read my book, I think you kind of realize that of course I don't mean to be presumptuous either to just but I probably consider myself somewhat of a feminist. And I, the themes of my book very openly tackle things like misogyny, amongst other things, racism, colonialism, homophobia. And my main character is misogynistic and is very entrenched in what we consider now to be some antiquated views of women. And, typically my female characters, it's kind of like my main character. So he starts with these narrow views, and the women in his life fit into those molds. And as his worldview expands, as he encounters women who are very, he's at first appalled at learning that when he arrives in a new place, that the women there are warriors, and that they're extremely capable warriors, and that they're rulers, they're autonomous rulers, not just consorts to kings. And he slowly starts to realize how intelligent, intellectual a lot of women are, how capable, how cunning, how equally as devious or conniving or capable or good, or as anyone who is in a leadership role, especially because his thing is that in his worldview, women are natural leaders, but in the places he encounters, they're not natural warriors, but in the places he encounters, many of them are. And the characters in his world, the women that he's initially surrounded off, fit more of his mold, at least in his mind. He doesn't see their strengths. He doesn't see them as being clever. He likes them docile. He likes them subservient. He likes them, what he considers ladylike. And those are some of the characters you see earlier. But as his worldview expands and he meets more, then you see that these characters, these really powerful female characters, emerge more and more, to the point where you realize in my series that it's really about the women in the series. And, especially in the third book, that becomes very, very evident. And it seems like I try to bring the reader along with the main character, who has these very backwards views that, I'm starting to thinking that women are just this, but now you're seeing with the growth as the series develops, he's learning that, oh no, I was very wrong about that. They can be all that and more, right? And when he meets women that are in many ways superior to himself, that can outsmart him, and that give him a run for his money, that's also the type of women he realizes that are really compelling and attractive to him. Whereas he thought that he was looking for a different type of woman in his stereotype of what he thought a woman should be. So I very much make a conscious effort with my female characters in that regard. And so it starts off seeming like, perhaps these female characters are very, again, stereotypical, and they're fitting in certain molds. But as the series expands, you get to really see, that's exactly the opposite. And I think in the first book, you initially see that in the character of Lacey, which is a very strong, extremely powerful, very dynamic character that has, she takes over every scene that she's in. And as the series expands, you'll kind of see that her role is pretty important. So.
And Parmeet is speaking for the ebook. And thank you so much for all the panels for your answers. Thank you so much for the beautiful answer, Shauna. I felt all of this while reading your book, and it really moved me.
Thank you.
JBJ Blaze, I almost always opt for hardcovers when I can, as I too prefer their collectible quality and durability over a softcover. I definitely don't consider that I have to pay more for it. Yeah. Sure. Nursoon was a small but proud seafaring kingdom on the eastern coast of northeast Crimea. Seafaring was a kindness, meaning they were pirates. Still my favorite line yet.
Thank you, JBJ. Thank you. I'm honored that you'd read that from my book.
So I know time always flies on these, but Shauna, you had mentioned that you might have some updates for us. You might have something to share. Maybe not.
Oh well, no, nothing too major. Just book 2 is set for release in September, and I have been working on some novellas in the series as well. So I might have more information about them soon, but nothing concrete yet. But no, there's nothing really about me that's too out there. The paperback's out in the UK in May, and then America in August. So there's lots of fun stuff happening next year. Lots of kind of promotion for book 1, and then book 2 coming out, which is I'm excited. I'm nervous and excited for people to read that. Yeah, so no, and just lots of reading. I've been doing lots of reading, and there's lots of interesting books on my radar as well, which I'm blogging and reviewing as often as I can. But yeah, no, that's it.
No, it's exciting that we have a release date for book 2. That's awesome.
Yes, and the cover's out as well, which is beautiful. I really like the cover. Michaela Alcano designed both the covers, and she's fantastic, a designer. Yeah, no, so all is well, all is good. I'm very excited now that I've finished my other job. I'm really trying to hit writing with a good go here, and to finish this. I'm halfway through the 3rd book, so I want to get that finished within the next couple of months, and then see where else I'm going to go after that.
Awesome, looking forward to it. And João, what's do you have any updates for us with your book?
Not yet. My plan is still to get it out by early 2023, but I'm still not sure about the month, and I don't really want to promise something that I'm not going to be able to deliver on. So for now, I think the safest thing for me to say is early 2023. Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah, I just want to get my grubby hands on it. That's why I'm asking.
I think once I have the arcs ready, you'll get it on your email.
Okay, I'll be pestering you, so don't forget about it. And P.L, how's book 3 coming along?
Book 3 entitled Lord and King is coming along well. It's the editor right now, and that nervous phase where you're going to get back and say, fix this, and and then I have to deal with my wife, who's also like probably my harshest editor that will will really tell me what's wrong with the book. But I'm excited. I think I typically have 4 special author friends or blogger friends that I ask to read the book and provide cover quotes. In this case, right now, it's 3 fantastic authors. One's Holly Tinsley, Tim Hardy, Eve Kogoshu, and Jenny Wirtz. So they so far the early feedback is they like it. Hopefully I think they're telling me the truth. I don't think they lie to me. So they say it's my best book yet, and I hope it's that. I like to think it's that. I'm trying to improve, as I said. Wall Street continuous improvement, and the release date is looking. I try to write a book every year and try to release around the same time every year. So spring 2023, you should see Lord and King released. And I'm working already feverishly on book 4, and trying to get that. I might even con a certain booktuber that I know who's kind of hosting this to maybe, get to read that one and maybe put some fodder. I thought I'd, just put that out there, but we'll see if he's willing.
Come on, cut it out, PL, cut it out.
Yeah. So Lord and King, and I said book series. So there's going to be a lot more of authoring coming still. So we're just starting to get into the meat of the story. So.
And we are in it next. This will be a busy month in February, but we are doing the deep dive for book 2 of the Joan Kingdom Saga 2. So just want to mention that. Oh,
thank you. Yep, that's the last of the Atalanteans, book 2. So we'll have hopefully the crew again, which was last time. Some phenomenal authors and booktubers. So Miles Cameron / Christian Cameron, Janie Wirtz, Laura Atlanta from Laura Lullabies, who popped in to say hi. Taylor from Maybe Between the Pages, our other Patreon partner, and Janie Wirtz, along with myself and Steve. So, and Blaze from Under the Radar Books. Yeah. Can't forget Blaze. So that should be promised to be exciting. So the first one was great. So we had a great time.
Awesome. And Chris, when are we going to get your next list video?
I'm going to do it tomorrow. I swear I'm going to do it tomorrow. I've a planned out of the book's packed. I've done it all. It's the small things that make difference. It's like lifting 10 books off the shelf, reaching up. I'm so lazy. This time of the year is awful. It's just like, I don't want to do anything. Like going outside. It's just like, I just want to read all day, or I just want to do, relaxing downtime. But yeah, I'm going to record it tomorrow. I'm going to record 2 videos tomorrow. That's my plan.
I'll be checking up on you tomorrow.
Yeah, well, it's one of those. If I'm releasing the top 10 books of 2022 in March, I think I missed the boat.
Yeah, that will be soon. And so, Shauna, thanks again for coming by. Where's the best place for people to find you if they want to find you and your work?
Well, Twitter, really. I'm also on Instagram, and I'm attempting TikTok. I'm not very good at TikTok yet, so don't try to find me there.
They're not bad at all. They're I check
no.
but for my once a week check in to BookTok or TikTok. There's always one that comes up, and I was go, oh, nice, because you're always trying something different, which is kind of nice. I like that part of it.
I know, but well, I'm doing okay, but there's some people there that have like 80,000, followers. Like, I get like one new follower for every video, so I don't know what I'm going to have to do to amass any sort of following there. I need to start dancing or something, but I can't dance. So.
Irish dancing, I mean, it's made for it.
Oh god, I wouldn't
Get your
even
travel shoes
like
on.
that upon anybody. Yeah. So Twitter. Find me on Twitter.
Yes. And P.L., where's the best place for people to find you in the Joan Kingdom?
You can find me usually beside Stephen Taylor on Page Chewing. Twitter, of course, at PL still writes. Twitter is my main preferred social media handle. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, but not as much. On Before We Get Blog, my reviews, Before We Go Blog, led by the incredible Beth Talbot again. My reviews on Goodreads. My website, www.plstore.com. That's where you can learn about the books and about me. And also, I do author interviews on my website, 6 Elemental Interviews, where I interview creators from all over. I'm hoping to, twist Shauna's arm after I read her book and have her. I'd be honored to have her interview as well. And typically, I publish those interviews on Before We Go Blog as well. So, thank you. And you can find me again mostly besides Steve, and on Steve's Page Chewing forum, which is fantastic, by the way. So, great community that Steve is building there. Exceptional community, really warm, safe space. So, of all you that are worried about social media these days, Steve's forum is a great place to be, and you'll feel loved and protected there. So
it's the best compliment. And João, where's the best place for people to find you and bother you about your book?
They can bother me anywhere. I'm probably on all social media, always at João Silva writes. But probably my website is, I would say it's my hub at the moment. It's joaofsilva.net. And that's where I have my mailing list that has all the links to all the social media, whatever you prefer. And that's basically it.
Awesome. We're looking forward to it. And Chris, where can people find you and your video that's going to post tomorrow?
You can find me on my channel at my name. When it goes up, it'll come up like I'm flashing lights or something when YouTube realizes that I've actually done anything. Although I will say, not making a video has been great for my subscriber count. I've gained way more subscribers not making videos. I think the world's trying to tell me something. But other than that, you can find me on Twitter at 7 o'clock Shadow or on Page Chewing forums, which are great fun at the moment. It's becoming a regular check-in multiple times during the day at the moment, which is great.
Awesome. Great. It's great to hear. So thanks everyone for coming by, and we'd love to have you back. Whatever, just let us know, and you're always welcome to come and hang out. So I'd love to chat again. Hope everyone has
Thanks
a great
for
New
inviting
Year.
me back. It was great.
yeah, Happy New Year, everybody.
Likewise. Yeah, very good to be here.
Yeah,
New Year,
and welcome anytime. Just let us know. So hope everyone has a great New Year. Thanks for hanging out with us. We know it's a busy time, so thanks for taking a few hours out of your night to hear us talk about random book stuff. So thanks everyone. Have a happy New Year, and we'll see you next year.